The Cardinals have signed former Giant shortstop Brandon Crawford, plus a look at how things went today in their spring training matchup against the Marlins, plus a look back at all the fun that went on this weekend. This is Locked On Cardinals.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily St. Louis Cardinals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Cardinals fans. I'm JD Haffern, and I'm a national radio sports anchor, born and raised in the Lou, and a lifetime Cardinals fan. And I'm your host for Locked On Cardinals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. You can follow me on Twitter, X at JD Sports Radio. You can follow the podcast at LO_Cardinals. I want to thank those of you who make Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast. On YouTube, you can find us as well. Make sure you like, subscribe, and comment. That way, you know when new things are coming out, man. We got, people in the comment section always talking about Cardinals, good, bad sometimes, but at least it's constructive conversation. Make sure you hit the notification button so you don't miss the new episodes when they're posted. This is a show serving Cardinal Nation and giving the best fans in baseball all of the info about the birds on the bat. A reminder also that when there is breaking news, we do the YouTube shorts. So when Brandon Crawford's the announcement was made that Brandon Crawford was getting signed by the Cardinals, there is a video short out there on YouTube. So another reason why you might want to stop by the YouTube site and like, comment, notification button, all that jazz. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today, and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/locked on to get started. So first off, how great is it to have Cardinals baseball back? I mean, even though it's just spring training, it was a lot of fun watching games this weekend, and of course today as well on this Monday. And in particular, getting a chance to watch the young players get a lot of action. I had more fun. I don't care what Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt are doing in spring training. It really doesn't bother me. It's great that they're getting hits, and if they go 0 for 0, big whatever, I don't care. I like watching the young guys. I like seeing what these guys, the future of the Cardinals are going to be. And we're going to get into the good and bad of what happened this weekend. We'll do that a little bit later on, probably in segment 3 here. And we'll talk about today's game, which it was not on TV, unfortunately. But they ended up having to sit Matt Carpenter, so I'm going to let you know the latest on his injury. But let's start with the eyebrow-raising news that came out today about the Cardinals shortstop situation. It was reported early on by Derek Gould from STLtoday.com in the Post-Dispatch that there was mutual interest between the Cardinals and four-time Gold Glove winner Brandon Crawford. Okay, that was the tweet. It was put out. I was like, ooh, okay. I thought Brandon Crawford was retiring. I didn't think he was signing anywhere. I had no idea he was actually considering playing in 2024. I thought he was done, and he would have finished his entire career with San Francisco. And then just a couple of hours later, it was announced by Katie Wu from The Athletic and others that the two sides have agreed on a deal pending a physical, and that Brandon Crawford is now going to be a St. Louis Cardinal. But this comes after the news that the Giants had signed former Diamondback shortstop Nick Ahmed, a name that we actually talked about last week as a possible solution for the Cardinals' depth. I don't want to say problem, but their depth question, if you will, at the shortstop position. The Ahmed signing by the Giants signified that the 37-year-old Crawford would not be returning to San Francisco. Again, I thought he was retiring. I didn't think he was playing ball. He had spent his first 13 years of his career in San Francisco, and what a career it was. I mean, Brandon Crawford has been great for the Giants. 4 Gold Gloves, 3-time All-Star, Silver Slugger winner, and a winner of 2 World Series championships. That's quite a resume. That's quite a resume for him. And he's got the luscious curly locks that come out of the back of his hat, which everybody's going to be a fan of, I'm sure. So you could understand why the Cardinals would be interested in talking to him. Now, the Cardinals, in my opinion, don't have a shortstop problem. I just pointed that out. I wouldn't, the word problem means that, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? We're screwed. That's the type of scenario I think of when I say the word problem. But I want to be clear on that. I don't think it was a problem. The idea and plan for 2024 is to have your top prospect, and yes, still rookie eligible Mason Wynn get the first crack at being the starter. Now, barring something catastrophic, this is Mason Wynn's job. And he looked really, really good in his spring debut on Sunday. We'll talk more about that later. The idea was that backing up Mason Wynn at shortstop will be Tommy Edman, who just so happens to be the team's preferred center fielder, too, which is odd because you don't see a lot of that where a guy is a starting outfielder and then he just comes in and plays a little infield here and there. We saw it with Mookie Betts and the Dodgers. Apparently, he's now going to be an infielder, but you didn't see that very often. Sometimes you see infielders go to the outfield. The Cardinals do that a lot, but rarely did you see somebody like, say Lars Nootbaar come in and play shortstop. You know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't happen that way very often. And Tommy Edman had to have wrist surgery this offseason. Remember, it caught us all by surprise in January when we're like, okay, what? Where did that come from? Because they just didn't talk about it very much at all, to be honest. We didn't really find out about it until January. Well, according to Jeff Jones at the Belleville News, Tommy Edman, talking about the rehab and his recovery this offseason, is unable yet to make contact with a pitch ball as he goes through the progression of his rehabilitation. His uncertain readiness stands as the first real potential turning point for a roster, which is otherwise fairly straightforward to predict. He also points out that Edman is sporting an angry red scar, which you got to love that term about the scar, an angry red scar, which runs roughly from his wrist to the midpoint of his forearm and is limited to hitting off a tee, sometimes only with one hand on alternating days. Today is February 26th. That means we've got 30 days until opening day against the Dodgers. The baseball season, as we know, is a grind. It is not a sprint. It is not the first team to get to 50 wins. You're automatically in the playoffs. No, it's a long, long season. Does pushing Tommy Edman to return by opening day make a ton of sense? If he's improving and he's progressing and is on pace to be ready to go, then great, right? Like, oh, cool. Kind of ahead of schedule. That's fantastic. But if that doesn't happen, then does what the Cardinals have internally, was that going to be enough? That really was the question. Is that what they wanted to go into with no Edman? So you don't have your center fielder, and then you don't have your backup shortstop. So you're trying to fill not one, but two voids on the roster. That's how important Tommy Edman is to this team. So the Cardinals have decided to go in the direction of pulling somebody out of the free agent market. They went with Brandon Crawford. So we're going to talk more about the newest Cardinal and what the internal options were for this situation and kind of decide, is Brandon Crawford better than what they already had in the organization to fill this void? So we'll get into all of that coming up next on Locked On Cardinals. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now, new customers, you get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Once again, that's $150 if your bet wins. $5 bet, and you can walk away with $150. I'm not great at math, but I think that's good. And we're talking about the NBA, which is back in full swing now that the All-Star break is over. You can bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams, whether you're a fan of the Lakers, maybe it's the Celtics, maybe you like the Bulls still from back in the Jordan era. I have kind of gravitated toward the Indiana Pacers. I don't know what it is about them that makes me kind of like them. But that's kind of who I like to watch when I get a chance to. But you're able to bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams. They've got the quick bets at FanDuel. You've got live same game parlays. They've got exclusive props. You know all the different stats you can bet on when it comes to basketball: points, rebounds, steals, assists, turnovers, blocks, whatever you want to go with. There's so many of them, and there's so many different ways for you to win and take home a lot of money. And you don't even have to get off your couch. It's pretty easy. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV on the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows, which cover every single league. You can find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Again, thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. Leave your comments on YouTube as well as on Twitter X anytime you want. Feedback always welcome and encouraged. So far, feedback on the signing of Brandon Crawford, pretty positive. I know some people are knocking his age a little bit. We're going to get into that. But for the most part, most people seem to like him. And I liked Brandon Crawford as a player throughout his whole career. I'm not trying to be a pessimist. I'm not a pessimistic person. That's just not my nature. But I find it difficult right now to believe that after this signing, we can bank on Tommy Edman being ready and back in time for opening day. Not the end of the world that he's not, but it certainly causes some shuffling on the roster. And Brandon Crawford makes sense for a team, but at the same time, there's still some questions about it of whether or not Brandon Crawford was the right way to go, as opposed to what you had internally in the organization already. Now, I've been a big fan, mentioned of him his whole career. Great glove, so smooth over there at shortstop, 4-time Gold Glove winner. A solid hitter from the left side who showed some surprising pop over a couple of years. He's been a winner. The Giants have been a very good organization over the tenure of Brandon Crawford's time with San Francisco. From all accounts, he's been a great clubhouse guy. I've never heard anybody say anything negative about Brandon Crawford. Not long ago, 2021, the guy finished 4th in the NL MVP voting just a few years ago. And he's reportedly willing to play 2nd and 3rd if he needs to, which is great because we know the Cardinals love versatile players. Like versatility is a big deal, and if you're going to be replacing a Tommy Edman for a little while, nice to have somebody who can do a little bit of everything on the infield there. So play 2nd, play short, play 3rd. That's cool. Now, what are some of the negatives about one Brandon Crawford? Well, 37 years old, so we're not getting any younger. Had a lot of injury issues last year. April, he dealt with a calf issue. July, leg and knee. He had a forearm problem in August, his hamstring in September. Played in only 93 games last year and had his worst statistical year hitting, just 194. I'm going to throw up on YouTube here real quick. I'm going to throw up some of the baseball savant stuff. There you go. So there's this page. Once again, red is good, blue, not good. And there is nothing in red whatsoever. Hit just 194 last year, 273 on base percentage, 314 slugging, OPS plus of just 63. He only hit 188 against right-handers, which during his career he's normally been pretty good at. He doesn't suffer against lefties, but righties is where, there's just more right-handed pitchers out there in the league. That's just the way it is. And, most of the power and stuff that he had came against right-handed pitching, and it just was not there. There just wasn't a lot to be optimistic about last year when it came to his offensive skills. Perhaps his best characteristic throughout his career for Brandon Crawford was his defense. Mentioned he's been a 4-time Gold Glove Award winner. And defensively, the last couple of years, things are going in the wrong direction. Defensively last year, had a -14 total defensive runs saved, which was a career low. And it's not like that came out of nowhere because the previous year in 2022, he was at -6. So he's going in the wrong way. That's not a good trend. That's not what you want to see. And honestly, what does it say when the team that has had him as such an important piece for how good they've been for so long that they decided to move on? That they were like, we'll go with Nick Ahmed instead to back up their top prospect, which is Marco Luciano instead. Like, wouldn't you think the Giants would want to keep Brandon Crawford around and have him kind of tutor their young prospect? But instead, they're going to let Crawford walk. He's coming to St. Louis, and they bring in Nick Ahmed, who was let go by the Diamondbacks last year. I mean, that's kind of weird, right? I mean, they know him better than anybody. And they said, no, thanks. Thanks for your 13 years, but no, thanks, Brandon. We're gonna move on. We're gonna get somebody else. So I found that to be a little bit odd. Internally, the Cardinals, they had some options, and we've discussed this before because we weren't worried about who was going to be the starter. Mason Wynn's going to be your starter, but we were just curious what they were going to do as far as the backup role. What was the depth at the shortstop position when Tommy Edman, even if he was healthy, he's still your starting center fielder. I mean, you really want to rely on your starting center fielder to have to come in and play shortstop when Mason Wynn needs a day off or something? Like, don't you want him out there in center field? He's your center fielder. So, I've been talking about this throughout the offseason. Like, well, what are they going to do here? I was surprised that they went and got a free agent shortstop. I figured Brendan Donovan was going to be the answer. He's played some shortstop at the major league level. Again, he's coming off elbow surgery on that throwing arm. And we heard Ollie talk about it early on in the spring about how they want to kind of keep him at second base for now. He's not got any limitations or anything, but I think they're just being smart about it. They're like, well, we don't want him making a bunch of deep throws from the shortstop area. Let's just let him do his thing at second base. So far, so good in the games that he's played in. Jose Fermin on the 40-man roster as of right now, because this deal with Crawford is pending a physical, so we don't know who's going to get removed from the 40-man. But I don't think Fermin's going to be that guy. I think maybe like a Buddy Kennedy. That would be my guess, but we'll see. But clearly the Cardinals wanted somebody with a better track record at the position. And not a horrible idea to have somebody like Brandon Crawford mentoring your prize prospect in Mason Wynn to play shortstop. You got Ozzie Smith, who's working with him in the spring, but it's nice to have a guy like a Brandon Crawford right there with him on the road and teaching him some stuff throughout the season. I don't have a problem with that at all. Learning the ins and outs of the position from a 4-time Gold Glove winner, I'll take that. Ozzie Smith is not going to be on the road with Mason Wynn and at all the ball games this year. He's there in spring training. He's doing his thing, but he ain't going to be there the whole time. So not a horrible idea, right? Some other questions. Let's say Tommy Edman comes back a couple of weeks into the season. What do you do with Crawford then? Does he remain on the roster? And if he does, you now have Brandon Crawford and Matt Carpenter on your bench. So you got two 37-plus-year-old left-handers on the bench right now. What does that mean for Alec Burleson, who is your young left-handed hitter off the bench? Does he go to Memphis so he can play every day? I don't hate that idea. I don't want to waste Alec Burleson on the bench. But again, I thought he was good enough to be that fifth outfielder for you, because you got Newt, you got Edman, you got Walker, you got Dylan Carlson. If Edman's out, Carlson slides in the center field, and Burleson would have been your fourth guy. So does that mean Donovan is like your fifth guy and now your fourth guy in the outfield? With Crawford backing up Gorman and Wynn up the middle. Also, like I said, apparently willing to play some third base. When Arenado needs a day off, Gorman can slide over the third base as well. I mean, I see how he fits, but at the same time, I see how it's going to push some people down the line a little bit, And I'll be honest, I'm just a little surprised. I'm a little surprised by this move just because it seemed like it would have been more like the Cardinals to stick with what they have already than to go out and grab somebody off the free agent market. But if you're going to get somebody and he's willing to be that backup role and not worry about him playing every day, Brandon Crawford, you can do a lot worse than him, right? Maybe Edman's going to be out a bit longer than we thought, than what they first anticipated. And they're like, well, we're going to need somebody who can play a couple of months here. And here's the other thing. When Tommy does come back, what if he gets re-injured? So instead of, how last year we gave the Cardinals a lot of crap about not preparing enough in case things went bad, where they just were very thin when it came to their pitching. Maybe that's what they're doing here. They're just like, dude, I'd rather have them than not have them. And then if things go sideways and something happens to Mason, and then you've also got Tommy here, then we're screwed and we don't have a shortstop whatsoever. We just got a bunch of dudes filling in. Maybe that's the idea here, that they're just making sure that they've got enough depth. Perhaps that's what it is too. But you give the squad a legit veteran that if needed to play a bigger role, it seems like he can step up and do that. I know the numbers haven't been great the last couple of years, but again, 2021 fourth in the NL MVP. So maybe he's got a little juice in there, and maybe a change of scenery will kind of wake Brandon Crawford up a little bit. It's a possibility. Again, I don't hate the move, just a little bit surprised by it. That's all. And also keeping up with the ages this offseason, because that's the joke of the Cardinals this year, is they're building an old folks home for their baseball team. It is not a youth movement in St. Louis right now, but as far as offseason moves go, Crawford, 37, in a relatively young 37. He just turned 37. Carpenter's 38, Lance Lynn 36, Gibson 36, Sonny Gray 34, Kittredge 33, Middleton 30 years old. Now, a lot of these guys, remember, are 1 year, 2 year deals. So it's not like they've got these guys locked up for 5 years and they're all this old. But you bring all of these guys in to go along with Michaelis, who's 35, Matz is 32, Goldie's 36, Arenado's going to be 33 this year, Gallegos is 32. So you've got some vets, that's for sure, but you've still got a lot of youth on this team as well. But you're going to hear a lot of old people jokes when it comes to the Cardinals throughout the season if all of these guys end up sticking around on the roster. So anyway, we're going to discuss what happened this weekend in today's 1-1 tie against the Marlins. Leave your comments, suggestions, anything like that about the Brandon Crawford signing. Want to hear from you down in the comment section below, and hit me up on Twitter, X, and let me know what you guys are thinking about that. But we'll talk about today's game and this past weekend. We'll do that next on Locked On Cardinals. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. We don't want it where it's just sputtering along and just gonna make it. We want to make sure it's going the way it needs to go. Top level performance for your ride or die, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and a whole lot more. Whether you're into speed, like Victor Scott II, whether you're into power, like, I don't know, let's go with Nolan Arenado or Nolan Gorman, or you're into style, like Jordan Walker and a Mason Wynn, eBay Motors has got you covered with over, I should throw Brendan Donovan in there. He's got some good style to him. Anyway, with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, you don't have to worry about whether or not that part that you ordered is going to fit or not. Your part is guaranteed to fit your ride or your money back every single time. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only. Available to U.S. customers. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. We have our first tie of the spring training. I don't even know why I'm clapping for that, because ties are stupid, but it's not a loss. It's not a loss. But neither the Cardinals nor the Marlins really could get much going offensively today. They finished in a 1-1 tie in 9 innings. Matt Carpenter was originally in the lineup, but was taken out before his first at-bat due to a bruised left wrist. You got to remember, he got hit on that wrist earlier, but it didn't seem to be anything major. Apparently, he was in the dugout laughing, smiling, goofing off, so it didn't seem like it was anything to worry about. Just giving the old guy a day off. Let it heal a little bit. No need to push it. The Cardinals pounded out 9 hits on the day, but had trouble getting them across the plate. As far as guys on the opening day roster go, Paul Goldschmidt had a hit and a walk. Arenado had a double. Gorman had a single. Ivan Herrera had a single, and the lone RBI off of Marlins top pitching prospect Yuri Perez. And by the way, does it drive anybody else nuts that, because the game wasn't on TV today, so I was listening to the feed, and the announcers, Mike Claiborne, to be specific, continues to call him Ivan Herrera. And that is not how he says his name. Ivan is how he says it. I even tweeted about it, tagging some people on it, like Jeff Jones and Katie Woo and Brooke Grimsley. And I hey, it is Ivan, right? Like, why are they saying it Ivan still? He's not the Russian fighter in Rocky IV. Ivan Herrera. Say his name properly. That drives me bonkers when they get that wrong. Anyway, the team goes 1 for 9 with runners in scoring position. If you remember, something that drove us all nuts last year was one of the problems that killed them last season. They would get people on, and then they just strand them out there. So 1 for 9 with runners in scoring position. Not great. Pitching-wise, you had to like what you saw from prospect Sim Robertson, who got the start. Giovanni Gallegos struggled a bit, giving me more PTSD from the 2023 season because he walks the first guy, which is a big no-no. We all know that. And then he gets the next guy out, walks the second guy, gets another guy out, strikeout, 2-1, 2 out. Guess what? Gives up that dreaded 2-out RBI single to Jesus Sanchez. And it's just the 2-out hits last year. Hence why I've got the PTSD from it, because drove me nuts last year, drove you nuts last year. And then you see Giovanni Gallegos, who's supposed to be a big piece of this bullpen puzzle again this year, doing the exact same thing that was happening last year that made us all so angry. So that sucked. But spring training, deep breaths, namaste. But Andrew Kettridge and Matt Swanson, they end up coming in, combined for 2 shutout innings. Former first-round pick Cooper Jerpy looked good, struck out 4 over 2 innings of work. Again, spring training, trying not to freak out about it. But when the same stuff that went wrong last year start going wrong with guys who are supposed to be starters and people who are a big part of this team this year, I'm going to get worked up about it. Had a lot more fun watching the games this weekend, to be honest. Split squad games on Saturday against the Marlins and Mets, and then the Astros on Sunday. Some of the things that stood out to me in that 9-8 loss to the Marlins: 8 runs, 12 hits. Arenado had 2 of those. One of them was a double. He knocked in 2. Gorman had a double. Carpenter had a double. Matthew Liberatore, not great in his first outing. 2 runs, 2 hits, 2 innings of work, just 1 K, 1 walk. You want more consistency out of him, but first start of spring training, not freaking out. Former first-round pick Michael McGreevy, he got knocked around. 4 runs, 3 of them earned on 5 hits, including a dinger in 2 innings of work. John King had an ugly day, too. 3 runs on 4 hits in 1 inning. He's a guy that originally I thought probably was going to be in this bullpen, but as they continued to sign people and you start to see how these other guys are performing, he might get squeezed out of a bullpen spot if he doesn't have a good spring. Helsley got out of trouble, had a couple of punch-outs. Ryan Fernandez had a clean inning. Then in the Mets game, which was the one I was paying more attention to on Saturday, the young guys, they came out swinging in a 10-5 victory over the Mets. Brendan Donovan looked strong and, more importantly, healthy in that game, both at the plate and defensively. Had a hit, scored 2 runs. Lars Nootbaar had 2 hits and a run scored and an RBI. Thomas Ajacey, 2-run double. Victor Scott was on base, causing havoc. He is so much fun to watch. If he can hit just a little bit, if he can give me 260 at the major league level, that dude's going to be a weapon. He's going to be a weapon. On the mound, Zach Thompson looked great. 2 shutout innings in the start. Riley O'Brien, he opened some eyes. First time I had a chance to actually watch him live consistently. 98-99 with the fastball. Wicked breaking ball. Andre Palante looked good. Shutout innings. Same for the new Cardinal, Victor Santos, who they got in the Tyler O'Neill deal. He looked good. Nick Robertson struggled. Adam Kloffenstein, Andre Granillo, who's my guy, had a couple of strikeouts, but he also struggled, gave up a dinger. Those 3 guys gave up all 5 runs, but it was a nice, fun look into the future for the Cardinals. Sunday, the Astros game, it was the Mason Wynn show. Cardinals likely starting shortstop. Made his spring debut. He goes 3 for 3, had a stolen base, showed off the cannon arm on that play that he had to go into the hole, and only his arm, him and an Ellie De La Cruz or an O'Neill Cruz, only those arms, top 1% in the league, are going to get that guy at first base, and Mason Wynn got him. Victor Scott had his first stolen base, his jump, just massive, the speed, the quickness. He walked twice. Dude, I'm in love with this guy already. Man crush. Victor Scott the second for sure. Alec Burleson, the RBI single. The pitching, dominant. You had Drew Rom, got the start. Tossed 2 shutout innings. Gordon Graceffo, 2 shutout innings. Connor Thomas, 2 shutout innings. Teen Kent's, got to see him finally. 2 shutout innings. He walks 3, but he also strikes out 4. It was fun. It was fun to watch this weekend, and I love the youth that the Cardinals have coming up in their organization. Will a lot of them be on the team this season? Probably not, but the future at least looks bright. And early on in spring training, I've enjoyed what I've been watching so far. They're now 2-1-1. They got the Red Sox on Tuesday. New staff ace Sonny Gray scheduled to make his first start of the spring. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. If you haven't already, do me a solid. Give me a follow on Twitter X at @LO_Cardinals and at JD Sports Radio. Like and subscribe on YouTube to help our channel and our love for the Cardinals grow. You are the best fans in baseball for a reason, and I will see you next time on Locked On Cardinals.